Well, let's get another perspective from my next guest. Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond is a former Saskatchewan judge and a law professor at the University of British Columbia. She usually joins us either remotely or by some Skype or FaceTime from British Columbia, but here you are today. You're in the studio with me, and it's good to see you here. You've frequently provided analysis for us here on CPAC, and we appreciate it. Given what you've heard about this case, the Mark Norman case, and the reasons for staying the charge, what questions do you have? What questions pop to mind for you?
Well, first of all, the hell that he went through with this trial. I mean, I can only say that whether you have a client or whether you're a judge and you see someone run through a trial to this stage and then to have the charges stayed for such a high-profile matter, the damage, I mean, I think Canadians will support him, but the damage, the stress, the frustrations are normal. So just unbelievable. So part of it is just my response of saying, why did we do this to him? Why did our justice system do this to him at this time? But behind that is, in answer to your question, is where was this investigation? Why was it that the defense, in fact, provided the investigative material that the prosecution service used to decide that there was no reasonable likelihood of conviction? Generally, the RCMP do that, but apparently they missed out a whole range of credible and reliable sources that were sufficient to persuade the prosecution service later. And obviously the judge was quite miffed as well.
So why and you're not in the case, I'm not in the case. Why would that happen? So, you expect a thorough case, and now we're finding out that, as you say, the defense is going around and finding the people who can basically lay waste to the prosecution's case when, had all this been done, I guess, at the front end. If the Mounties had gone to these same people at the front end, they might have come to prosecutors with a different either recommendation, or the prosecutors would have been able to make a different decision about whether to charge or not.
That's right. I mean, police have an obligation not to have tunnel vision. And sometimes they can be directed into sort of one theory and they get too narrow with that theory. It's their public duty to look at everything, right? So when you see a defense team and a defense lawyer doing that work, is problematic. The other layer to it is, the defense lawyer said very clearly, she couldn't get the material from the Privy Council office and the Prime Minister's office that she felt very strongly would have exonerated her client. So
she even pointed out that the prosecution couldn't get some of the material. They didn't get it either from the government.
No, and so that's another very serious problem. Is like the issue of there's sort of an element of kind of political influence, possibly, or possibly having a level of favoritism toward one company or another, or whether this is a level playing field in this industry or not, is a very sensitive issue in Canada. It's sensitive everywhere. But the idea that there's information sitting in a Prime Minister's office or a Privy Council office, well, Mr. Norman is on trial at this very high profile piece, and it's just sitting there, or it's provided where it's completely redacted. All there is the to and the from. That's a troubling fact because it's a criminal trial, right? It's not just a hearing of a committee of the House of Commons. Right. This is a criminal trial where someone's liberty and reputation stands to be harmed. He's walked away with a stay, but without a doubt he's been damaged by this process, just emotionally damaged by going through this. You just can't go through this and come out the same at the other end.
What do you think we should do about it? I mean, what moving forward? I mean, we've got opposition parties calling for full inquiries here to find out what happened. How serious do you think this is?
I think it's a very serious matter, and the concern I have is this is like the second shock we've had in our justice system. The SNC-Lavalin independence of the prosecution, we've just had a very respected Minister of Justice resign and then be, drummed out of the party and kind of being attacked all the time because she upheld prosecutorial independence. It appears the prosecutors behaved appropriately here, but there were other people around this system that didn't. And I think what it does is it doesn't bode well for Canada's reputation, number one. And number two, just like SNC-Lavalin, we need to get to the bottom of it. We just leave these things hanging and we just kind of move forward. And well, in the past we might be able to tolerate this kind of situation. I think now, our reputation becomes troubled and problematic, and we should look into it thoroughly. Certainly we should review what happened with the RCMP investigation and why they did not uncover this. And what are these rules around the Prime Minister's office holding these records and not releasing them when they're vital to the defense or the prosecution of a matter?
The defense also said, I think, a number of different points during the process that it was concerned about the fact that representatives from the PCO and PMO were, advising witnesses. Is that unusual? Is that the kind of thing that makes you go, wait a minute?
Well, I think it concerns me because I think, as you might recall, there was an exchange in the former Attorney General matter with Jody Wilson-Raybould. There was an exchange between her and Mr. Wernick that said, or it could be Mr. Butts, pardon me, that said this will reflect very badly on Mr. Norman's matter. Like, you cannot do this, because it would be it's almost like pulling a contrast, like we can't do these things. I don't know what she meant, frankly. I mean, she probably has a little something to say about this as well, but I think the issue is something happened here that was not appropriate, or at least Canadians need to be satisfied. Like, are there people influencing these matters? And if you don't go along with the decision to procure a contract in a certain direction, are you punished? Are you accused of being a traitor? And the concern I have, again, coming back to SNC-Lavalin, is we've just seen what happened to the Attorney General who stood up on principle. She was thrown out of her party. And I mean, every single week there's another attack on her they can't just throw her out. They have to try and destroy her. So there's something not right about this approach, and we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to stop doing this with our justice system.
All right, Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond, always good to get your perspective. Thanks again today.
Nice to see you.